The Prophet ﷺ said that خيركم خيركم لأهله. The best of you are those who are good to their family members, to their spouses, to their children. وأنا خيركم لأهله. And I'm the best of you to my family. So being good inside and being good outside is complementary. It shows that you're a good believer. But being good before people, and when you come home you have a frown face and you start, shouting and getting angry at the least thing, is disapproved, is refused totally by the Prophet ﷺ, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Is it true that Muhammad ﷺ used to kneel down like this and let Sophia climb up onto the camel?
That's
like
absolutely that? Just imagine the Prophet ﷺ would let his wife climb on his knee so that she can get on the back of her camel. That happened with Sophia, may Allah be pleased with her. Not only that, once there was a noise and Aisha was in the house of the Prophet ﷺ, he was in her room, and the noise was all about that some Abyssinians were playing with their spears, some sort of dance, traditional dance. So she was interested in watching. So the Prophet ﷺ invited them inside the masjid to watch. And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha ardaha, she was looking from her room, and the Prophet ﷺ was covering her with his outer garment. And she was looking, placing her head on the shoulder of the Prophet ﷺ next to his head. And the Prophet ﷺ never asked her to quit. He was waiting until she was satisfied and said, enough. She said, no, not yet. Okay. Then he waited until she said, that's enough. The Prophet ﷺ had time to do that to his wife, and she was just one of them. Yes. It is very, very important to keep in mind that giving a good treatment to your wife, to your family, is a sign of being a good believer. Your wife have rights upon you. And as I said that, if you are seeking happiness and pleasure, you have to give, because life is all about give and take. You can just take and not give.
One more thing, Sheikh. We get back to the same thing. You were talking about a husband should give some rights to the woman, but on this world right now, with some men believing that I'm in charge, and my wife have to listen to me and obey me and things like that. What you have to is that considered like?
Remember my advice to you initially when I said that we should not confuse what's religious and culture together and say this is a part of religion. This is what people do nowadays. So people who come from some parts of the world and they assume that a man is like a god at home, that nobody else has a say, nobody else would say a word or discuss or argue with him. The word is his. This is simply can be described in one word as dictatorship. Real leadership is to be kind, is to be gentle, is to be wise. Yes, you make the decision, but nothing wrong with consulting your wife. Consulting even your children.
Consulted his wives.
And he did that a lot. He did that a lot, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yes. Being a man at home doesn't mean that you shout and you scream and you scare everybody. No. You can be a leader and gentle, as the Prophet ﷺ was. His wives would argue with him sometimes. And sometimes one of his wives would even desert him to the end of the day. Once the Nabi ﷺ said to Aisha, Ya Aisha, I know whenever you're mad at me. She said, and how is that? He said, well, whenever you're mad at me, you say, La wa Rabbi Muhammad. You swear by saying, I swear. Whenever you're mad at me, you say, La wa Rabbi Ibrahim. I swear by the Lord of Ibrahim. And that means you don't even want to pronounce my name. And whenever you're pleased with me, you say, La wa Rabbi Muhammad. I swear by the Lord of Muhammad. She said, Ya Rasulullah, by Allah, I only desert your name. I can't keep away from you. But it's just a sign that to show maybe I'm upset. Conflicts happen. If you ever imagine that you will have a happy life forever in this dunya, that's not going to happen.
Did you think Allah would leave you alone?
Yeah, if conflicts happen in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, in his houses, with his wives, and he was the greatest man on earth, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his wives were the best. However, still problems arose. Sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would argue with his wife and their voice would be loud, but the Prophet ﷺ would treat the situation with wisdom.
Well, Sheikh, what if it's a wife, you know, it really makes you really angry, sometimes they really make you angry, and how you control it?
You know, when the Prophet ﷺ ordered us to be kind and gentle, he did not specify that whenever you're happy and whenever your wife is pleasing you. No. In every situation, he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة إن كره منها خلقا رضي منها الآخر. That a believer should not just dislike his wife or his spouse just simply because he does not like a certain attitude or she makes him angry at some time or a certain point. Because he should look also to other events, other situations where she makes him happy, to keep balance. And really, it's best to keep in mind this ayah as a banner always in your mind, before your eyes, in every situation. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلَيْكُمْ رَقِيبًا. Verily, Allah is ever all watcher over you. So you're not alone. Allah is watching you. If you think that yourself have the power and have the authority and you can do everything, you can react, remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever watching. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also treated situations where a person does not like his wife, is mad at her. So that if you do, it may be that you dislike something while it's good for you. وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. It may be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put in her a lot of good things, but just wait, be patient. And patience is a very good quality which a person should adopt at home and outside, and especially with his wife and his children. Umar ibn Khattab saying so that before Islam, we have never paid any respect to women. We used not to consider that they have any rights whatsoever. Then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the rights of women in the Quran and given them a share in the inheritance and etc. Once I was handling some affairs and there my wife interfered. So I told her that this is none of your business. Why do you talk about that? She said, are you better than the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Since his wives used to argue with him, he said, oh, do they do? Because Umar's daughter was married to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he sat out quickly and he went to his wife, Hafsa. Do you guys argue with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? She said, yes. One of us would argue with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and sometimes even that argument would last for a whole day. You know, so one have to keep in mind that perfection is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're looking for an absolute perfection, it's only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if this would happen in the house of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's very possible to happen in everybody's house.